Welcome to this explainer. If you're a coach, a manager, a leader, or honestly anyone whose job is to develop people, you've probably slammed into a very specific, incredibly frustrating roadblock when trying to guide someone to success. Well, today we're going to solve it. We're diving into chapter 16 of Fred Clements' super practical book, 30 Coaching Tools and Approaches That Actually Work. We're going to unpack a brilliant method that's built for real conversations, real people, and real change. So picture this real-world scenario. How do you help a highly capable person who is just completely stuck in their own head? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've got this team member, they've got the chops, they've got the experience, but suddenly, right before a massive high-stakes moment, like a giant presentation or a make-or-break interview, they just freeze. All that certainty evaporates, and you're sitting there wondering, how on earth do I help them get out of their own way and unlock their true potential? Let's look at how this actually plays out in the office. The symptoms of this stuck thinking are pretty glaring once you know what to look for. It's those incredibly unclear, circular conversations where you're just going nowhere. It's a sudden, weird lack of confidence from someone who usually knows their stuff. Maybe they stop taking ownership, or they get super defensive and just can't take feedback. Ultimately, they freeze right before the big event. They've put in the prep time. They have the skills, but they're paralyzed by this heavy cloud of anxiety or imposter syndrome, and it's completely blocking real change. Okay, so here's our roadmap for breaking down Fred Clements' practical tool. We're going to start with the confidence problem, then introduce the circle of excellence. After that, we'll dive into using the tool in practice, run through the pitfalls to avoid, and finally wrap up with real conversations, real change. All right, part one, the confidence problem. Let's really unpack why top-tier professionals sometimes completely drop the ball when the pressure is on. It all comes down to the capability versus confidence gap. Because let's face it, when preparation meets panic, skill alone just isn't going to cut it. A person can know every answer, have a flawless CV, and be 100% prepared, but if they walk into that room carrying a ton of fear or doubt, they can't project authority. Their technical brilliance gets completely overshadowed by their internal emotional state. They are literally stuck, which brings us to part two, the circle of excellence. This is the solution, and it's a brilliant concept pulled right from neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, designed to bridge that exact gap. What's so great here is how it totally demystifies anchoring. Anchoring is simply the process of intentionally connecting a highly resourceful, positive internal state to a specific, imagined physical trigger. Think about how this happens naturally. You smell a certain perfume or hear a specific song and boom, you're instantly transported back to a powerful memory. We can intentionally design a space on the floor to trigger that same rush of peak confidence. With a circle of excellence, we are purposefully building that anchor. And this highlights a core truth from Clements' book. State affects performance. People do not perform only from skill. You know, we spend so much of our coaching time obsessing over the technical stuff or perfecting the script. But if we aren't helping people manage their internal emotional state, we're missing the point. If someone's too panicked to string a sentence together, their shiny CV doesn't mean a thing in that moment. Moving to part three, using the tool in practice. How do we actually do this? How do you guide a real human being through this exercise? Let's walk through the actual steps of creating the circle. First, you have them visually map out a circle right there on the floor. Second, you, as the guide, ask them to deeply recall a real resourceful peak state, a moment in their life where they felt truly unstoppable. Third, you want them to fully associate with that memory using incredibly deep sensory detail. What did the room look like? What could they hear? What was the physical feeling in their chest? And then fourth, right as that feeling hits its absolute peak, you have them literally step into the circle. You're physically mapping that peak emotional state to the space inside that imaginary ring. And here's where it gets incredibly cool. The anchor becomes portable. In the span of just a few minutes, you, the coach, guide them to build that peak state. Hours later, you have them visualize folding up that imaginary circle. Days later, they're walking around carrying this folded circle in their pocket. So when that coachee is pacing outside the boardroom before a massive pitch, they can mentally take it out, unfold it right there in the hallway, and step directly into absolute confidence. It's a total game changer. All right, part four, pitfalls to avoid. As practitioners, we absolutely have to know the guardrails here to make sure we're using this responsibly and effectively. We need to be crystal clear on what this tool is versus what it isn't. What it is a phenomenal method for internal state management and emotional readiness. What it isn't Well, it's not a magic trick. Stepping into an imaginary circle isn't going to save someone who flat out hasn't practiced their interview answers or doesn't actually understand their role. It amplifies hard work. It does not replace it. You've also got some specific practitioner guardrails to keep in mind. First, it has to be taken seriously. If it feels like a joke, it won't anchor a thing. Second, you need deep sensory detail. Don't let it be a shallow, rushed mental exercise. Make them truly relive the sights, sounds, and feelings of those past successes. Third, never ever rush the process or the future pacing where they imagine applying it later. And finally, you, the coach, have to hold the space with total confidence. You're the guide, you set the tone finally. Part 5, Real Conversations, Real Change. Let's bring this all back to the real-world workplace impact, bridging the gap. Ultimately, the circle of excellence is about helping people access the absolute best version of themselves exactly when they need it most. By bringing this tool into your coaching conversations, you empower your people to smash through that stuck thinking and take total ownership of their performance in high-stakes situations. So the question I want to leave you with today is this: who on your team has all the capability in the world, but just needs you to help them build the key to unlock their confidence? For more information, head over to clementsconsultancy.com to buy a discounted PDF copy of the book, or head over to Amazon for the ebook or printed version.